Welcome to the Dan Casper Show podcast, your chance to catch the full show anytime, anywhere. If you missed it live on the radio, no worries. We've got you covered with all the sports talk, opinions, interviews, and conversations from the show. From the Packers to the Brewers to the biggest stories in sports and around Wisconsin, it's all right here. This is the Dan Casper Show podcast. What's up, everybody? Good morning and happy Tuesday. DK Show coming to you from the TDS Sports Talk studios this morning. Appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on the radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM, available online, sportstalk1051.com. You've got your smart devices, video stream, also up and rolling on a YouTube. Go click that subscribe, follow, whatever the kids call it these days. And such. Got the app as well, multiple different ways for you to be tuning in this morning. What do we have on our game plan? We've got a ton right now on our game plan. First off, Brewers last night suffering their first loss of the season, 3-2 to the Tampa Bay Rays, thanks to Tampa hitting go-ahead run double. Fortes hitting the go-ahead double in the top of the ninth off of Trevor McGill to take a 3-2 lead and to hold on to victory. Rays began the game with a solo shot, leadoff home run, Nick Harrison giving it up. But after that, Nick Harrison was pretty solid in his Brewers debut. Brewers ended up taking the lead in the bottom of the sixth thanks to a two-run shot from William Contreras, but the Rays tying it up in the top of the seventh. And, of course, as we just said, getting that go-ahead run in the ninth. So, Brewers, hey, they say you can't win them all, right? So that's obviously the case with the Brewers last night. But it's Brandon Woodruff Day today. So got that going for us, which is nice. Hopefully it's nice, right? So we get to see Brandon Woodruff in action for the Brew Crew today. We'll recap last night's loss, take a look ahead to tonight's game with Woodruff on the mound. What's your expectations for Brandon Woodruff this year? What are you hoping, like a baseline? Like, hey, if we just get this from Brandon Woodruff, I would be ecstatic. All right? I think we all know it's probably not going to be 200 innings, but hey, if he does get 200 innings, you'd be ecstatic. You'd be pumped. You'd be excited, right? So what are you just hoping to get from Woodruff this year? So, but before the game yesterday, some interesting news dropping regarding the Brewers. It is being reported that the Brewers have locked up one of their younger minor league players to a long-term deal similar to what they did with Jackson Chourio, and it's Cooper Pratt. So Cooper Pratt reportedly yesterday, 8-year deal worth around $50 million. We gotta talk about this here a little bit. So Cooper Pratt. And there's some club options and such with this, but it's something that obviously we have talked about at length here for the last, I guess whole spring training and such. But you look at the infielders, and we've talked about the depth, whether it's Jesus Mate, it's Jet Williams, and then Cooper Pratt. I know I wasn't the only one. Kind of felt like, okay, is Cooper Pratt maybe going to be the guy that's the odd man out and potentially a trade bait or something? But now he's locked up for an 8-year deal, about $50 million. And he's a great defensive shortstop. Could have some improvements within his offensive side of things. And it's just, what's your thoughts on your first thoughts on this move? Signing Cooper Pratt. And again, he's only played a couple of games at the AAA level. And it doesn't feel like he's going to be called up at any time soon. Maybe we're wrong on that aspect, but they They keep saying that he's got major league style defense. Offense could, improve. Maybe that kind of sounds like Joey Ortiz in some aspects. So I don't know. It kind of surprises me, and I think it surprised a lot of people yesterday, considering they acquired Jet Williams. Kind of thought Jet Williams was going to be the next man up. So maybe this is, he's going to be the third baseman. And then you got Jesus Mate potentially, coming down the wire here soon as that second. I know Cooper Pratt's got a little bit of experience at second base and such, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting. So what are your thoughts? What was your thoughts when you first heard the news yesterday? So we're going to talk about this and maybe some, ramifications, or what does this mean for some of the other players on this roster. So we'll hit that up. Lots of Brewers chat here this morning to open up things here in a little bit. We'll go back to what Matt LaFleur, some of the comments that he had to say yesterday. Not only Matt LaFleur, but Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst also speaking a little bit. Got some comments from Packers president Ed Policy with the owners' meetings going on down in Arizona. So we'll get to some of the comments from those. Specifically, Matt LaFleur, I think, are the big ones and such. Just a couple of them, according to our good friend Rob Demovsky, about running a 3-4 base with Jonathan Gannon. Matt LaFleur saying, we played a lot of 3-4 principles last season, so should be an easy transition to that. Finding ways to finish games. He said that's been on the forefront of my mind. It starts with a mentality, but it's got to be in everything we do. There's going to be a start and finish to every drill. But perhaps one of the more interesting comments and such, and honestly, some of the stuff that he brought up yesterday or talked about were some of the questions that I had for him. And one of them was that Players Association grade. And he said, I don't feel that way, but unfortunately some guys did. That tells me I've got to do a better job of communicating. It goes back to the relationship piece. I think it's so critical. We always talk about connected teams, our powerful teams, and we have to grow that connection. Certainly, that's been a topic of conversation within our building of how do we get these guys a little closer? Because the more they know each other, I think the more they're going to battle for one another. And he also was honest and said, quote, if I'm being honest about it, I think there were some guys that were upset about roles last year, and I think that took a toll on our football team. I think from a coaching standpoint, role clarity is key. We've got to obviously do a better job communicating with our players. Hey, here's your role, and if you're unhappy about your role, it's on you to do something about that, to carve out a role on this football team. But yeah, the buy-in is absolutely critical. Getting guys in there that are juiced and ready to go to work, and every day is going to be critical for us. So we'll go through some more of the comments that he had to say yesterday from the owners' meeting and such. So football talk coming your way. Hoops-wise, the Badger women's basketball team, their WBIT run is over after they fell to Columbia yesterday. So we'll chat all things Badgers with RJ Cardinal, including the men's hockey team getting set for their Frozen Four match against North Dakota coming up on Thursday. So RJ will join us in a couple hours from now. Bucks are also back in action, taking on the Dallas Mavericks. If you're still geared up for Bucks season and such. So we got a little hoops action coming your way. It is a Toyson Ford Grind My Gears Tuesday. What's grinding your gears? All right. Get it off your chest. Feel better about yourself. Hit us up with a text on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line, 715-830-1912. You can also join in on the Section 105 chat on our YouTube channel. Also, it is a Forgive Me Sports Gods, for I have sinned. What's your sports confessions? All right. It's all about making yourself feel better on a Feel Better Tuesday. All right. So what's a confession? What's something maybe, that's been bugging you and you're like, hey, I got to confess my sports sins here. So come on, share it with us. All right. Also, it is I'm not saying, but I'm just saying. I'm not saying blank, but I'm just saying blank. Best ones we'll read up on the air. So continue to send those on over too. So as you can tell, we've got a loaded up game plan for this morning. So pitter patter, let's get at her, shall we? We got the leadoff Kevin up here, and we're going to talk some baseball. We're going to talk some Brewers. Brewers suffering their first loss of the season. We'll take a look at last night's game. Take a look at Brandon Woodruff making his regular season debut tonight. What's your expectations? What would you, just kind of a minimum expectation from Brandon Woodruff? Hey, if we get this from Woody this year, I'd be satisfied. I'd be more than happy. I'd be good. All right. What should the expectation be for Brandon Woodruff this year? And a little bit more than just stay healthy. All right, that's cool. He's healthy, but what if he's like 5-12 with a 5 ERA? Are you good with that? So I want a little more than just health. I think we all want health. So from a performance standpoint, from Brandon Woodruff, what would you like to see? Because we all want him to be healthy, and we all want him to pitch in September and October. But from a performance standpoint, what's your bare minimum? What's your bare expectation for Brandon Woodruff? And then this Cooper Pratt deal, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like completely surprised and 1 like not surprised at all, what was your instant reaction when you heard about this yesterday? All right. Scale of 1 to 10. Hit me up. Let me know. All right. We'll take our first break, and then we've got the leadoff coming your way after these quick words. Stocking up for spring? Well, hey, Hy-Vee in Eau Claire has everything you need to fill your pantry or pack up your freezer and maybe get ready for some outdoor meals, little picnics, little outdoor cookouts and such, from fresh cuts of meats and easy grill-ready favorites to frozen essentials, snacks, and quick weeknight dinners. Hy-Vee makes it simple to be prepared for whatever the season brings. Planning a backyard cookout? Hey, they've got the buns. They've got the sides and all the options and flavors to make it easy. Stop on in today, stock up, and save time and enjoy more moments around the table or the grill. And don't forget, too, you can save money at the gas pump with Hy-Vee perks. So Hy-Vee in Eau Claire, where there is a helpful smile in every aisle. We know price is going up, so it'd be the best way to save gas at the pump. Take advantage of those deals at Hy-Vee in Eau Claire. I did this morning on the way to work. Filled up, used some, saved some money with my fuel perks from Hy-Vee too. So good stuff there. All right, let's get the leadoff going here this morning. Talking some Brewers. Jeremy says, I think expecting Woodruff. I think expecting Woodruff to end with 8 or more wins, 125 innings or more pitched, and 140 more strikeouts. Mostly, I'm expecting him to be the stopper. It is bound to happen that the Brewers will be in a slump or the bullpen will be exhausted and need a big start. I expect Woody to be that stopper and give them 6 innings or more in those games. Jeremy, I think that's really good. I think that's what I'm looking for right there. That's really good. That's solid. And I can't argue with any of that. I agree with that. Those are really some good points, Jeremy. Tip of the cap to you. Get a gold star this morning. But I think that's fair. I think a lot of that is fair. So how about the rest of you? What are your expectations from Brandon Woodruff outside of health? Because, again, we all want the guy to stay healthy. We all want the guy to be able to pitch in September and October. All right? So from a performance standpoint, what are your expectations for Brandon Woodruff when it comes to, hey, if he just gives us this or if he does this for us, I'd be happy. And let's be realistic with this. Of course, we would all love Brandon Woodruff to go out there and win 20 games and have a 2-something ERA. Is that going to happen? Probably not. But hey, never say never. Maybe it will, and we'd be pumped. But what is that kind of minimum expectation and such? So we'll get to Brandon Woodruff talk here in just a little bit. But last night, Brewers suffering their first loss of the season, 3-2 to the Tampa Bay Rays. But Kyle Harrison giving up a home run to right away to lead off the game to Diaz. But after that, Kyle Harrison was pretty solid. He was pretty solid. I think, you look at his line, 5 innings, 4 hits, that 1 earned run, only issuing 1 walk and 8 strikeouts. After that leadoff home run, Kyle Harrison looked the part. And Kyle Harrison is a pitcher. I know I mentioned it yesterday. I am really excited to see what he is able to provide, what he is able to do for the team this year, because I think he's got a ton of talent. And I think he has the potential to develop into a really, really good starter for the next few years here for the Brewers. I think he's got some nasty stuff. And I just think sky's the limit for Harrison. And outside of that home run, that one mistake, and obviously issuing a walk and such too, but overall, I thought he looked really good. He's got a unique delivery too, right? He's really quick and not much of a windup and such, but I was impressed. So outside that home run, they didn't lose last night's game because of Kyle Harrison giving up a leadoff home run. They didn't lose because of that. Brewers, they left 7 on base. They had just 5 total hits. 6 total hits last night. Contreras giving them a couple of them, including that 2-run shot to take the lead. There wasn't a whole lot of production besides that. And Brewers throwing out McGill in the 9th to preserve the tie. Not able to get it done. And not able to tie it up in the bottom of the ninth. So can't win them all. Nobody likes a dynasty, but the 162-0 dream is officially in the books. Hey, you can't go 161-1 without losing one, right? But to me last night, the biggest thing was the performance of Harrison and getting our first glimpse of Kyle Harrison. And sets the bar pretty high. He's probably going to have a couple games, maybe even a few games where he's not going to pitch that well. There's probably going to be a little inconsistency and such because he is still a younger pitcher and such. But I think we saw a glimpse, or we saw a big part of why there's a lot of excitement surrounding Kyle Harrison and what he could potentially do for this ball club this year. So, but we'll try. Brewers will try again later today. Later tonight, and that's where we go back to Brandon Woodruff. Brandon Woodruff making his season debut tonight, and when you look at it, Woodruff, there is about a couple games worth of experience with some of the Tampa Bay hitters going up against Woodruff. Nothing that I would really write home about, but you got Shane McClanahan on the mound for Tampa Bay. You got a lefty. And you got about 2-3 games of experience with some of these players on there. Bowers, 5 at-bats, 400 against him. Contreras, 3 at-bats, 333. But Rengifo is got 9 career at-bats, 111. And Sanchez, 8 career at-bats, 125. Yelich, 3 career at-bats, and he's 0 So we'll probably see a right-handed heavy lineup for the Brewers going up against the left-handed pitcher. Now, I don't know if that means because the Brewers also did make a trade yesterday to acquire a right-handed bat. Luis Matos is coming over from the Giants in exchange for cash. In 178 career games in 3 major league seasons, 230. He's slashing 231, 281, and a 369. Just 24 years old, and was a top 100 prospect as recently as the start of the 2022 season. So, not obviously a big acquisition and such, but Brewers looking, as Matt Arnold said yesterday, I think he's a guy who can help us from the right-hand side with the loss of Vaughn and Cheerio at the moment. It's a guy we feel could give us some offense from the right side, and he's really athletic. He's a former top 100 prospect who our scouts really like. So the Brewers designated for assignment left-handed pitcher Sammy Peralta in a corresponding move for the 40-man roster. They will have to make a 26-man roster move when he does arrive, which could possibly mean Jefferson Kiro gets sent back down so he can play every day and such. So I don't know if that means if he is going to be in the lineup today and such with the right-handed bat now, but I would imagine Brewers are going to try to maybe get maybe it's a Sanchez at catcher and Contreras DH, or could Sanchez at first base and Contreras still at catcher, and then you keep Yelich, the DH spot, and maybe a little Blake Perkins action. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this lineup's going to be, considering the Brewers don't have two of their top right-handed hitters going up against a left-handed pitcher tonight. So, but I think for Woodruff, my expectations for him, my bare minimum expectations, again, outside of health, if he's a guy that can get you in the ERAs of like low threes, maybe mid threes, if he could play, if he can make 20 starts might be a little too much for Woodruff, but I like 15 to 20 starts, I guess. I like Jeremy's innings count. I think, let me do some quick math here. If I'm looking at, I think 20, 22 starts, I think that'd be awesome to get from Brandon Woodruff, somewhere around there, because then you're in that 140, about 120, 140, 145 inning range. I mean, it depends on how deep he goes into it. And I'll be curious to see if Brandon Woodruff initially is kind of on a pitch count to open up the season, because they were building him up so much in spring training, and there were still questions on whether he was going to be, in the opening rotation and such. So I'll be curious to see if they kind of put him on a pitch count earlier on in the season. And if that's the case, that'll probably, limit him out his innings and such. But I mean, if he's efficient, I think that's the big thing too, is I want some consistency for Brandon Woodruff. Being the veteran within this rotation, I think a big boost that he could provide for this pitching staff and for this rotation is the consistency that he can bring to the table. Because I think you're going to have some inconsistent starts with the younger pitchers, like a Sproat, like a Harrison, maybe even a little bit with Miz and Chad Patrick. But what Brandon Woodruff could really do is provide that stability within the rotation, kind of like what Jeremy mentioned a little bit earlier. Kind of the stopper. Okay, when it's Brandon Woodruff's turn in the rotation, you kind of know what to expect from him. You kind of know what you're going to get. Is he the ace of the staff? No, probably not. We talk about that with the ace of the staff. When it's that guy's turn in the rotation, you're feeling pretty darn good that you're going to come away with a W. And I think you can still have that mindset with Woodruff. You're feeling good. I know Yelich last year said there's nobody else that he'd want starting, a high situation game, high leverage game, playoff type of game than Brandon Woodruff. And I just think he's got that amount of respect within the clubhouse and has the confidence of his teammates that when he is out on that mound and when he's pitching that game, team probably feels really confident that they're going to come away with a W. They just got to do their part. They got to do their part on the offensive side of things. They got to go out there and score enough runs because they're feeling good that he's going to pitch a solid game. So they got to do their part. I think that's honestly, the biggest thing that I want from Brandon Woodruff is just consistency, stability, providing that in the rotation. Obviously, we want gems. We want great outings. We want, W's and such. But if he could be that constant presence within that lineup, I think that would be a huge, huge boost to this pitching rotation that is full of young, inexperienced starters. But yeah, 3-something ERA, looking at between 20, 25 games, 22 games, something like that. I mean, there's a lot of, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things we can kind of pinpoint in and such. So, all right, we got to take a quick break. Plenty more Brewers talk coming up. Got to talk a little bit about Cooper Pratt, too. What was your first thought when you heard this deal yesterday, when you heard this report that the Brewers locking up Cooper Pratt to an 8-year deal? Give me your instant reaction. Hit me up with a message. All right, quick break. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Spring is here, and that means it's the perfect time to freshen up your home at Carpet City Flooring Center. Now is the season to take a look at what's under your feet and imagine what it could be. From soft, comfortable carpet that makes any room feel cozier to luxury vinyl planks and tile built for busy homes, there's something for every space, every budget, and every lifestyle. Hey, maybe it's one room that needs a refresh, or maybe it's time for a full home update. Either way, their team is there to help guide you through it all, from choosing the right style to professional installation that you could count on. Because spring isn't just about cleaning out the old. It's about bringing in something better, a brighter space, a cleaner look, a home that feels new again. So if you're ready to upgrade this season, stop on in and see what's possible. Carpet City Flooring Center in Eau Claire, where your next project starts from the floor on up. So yesterday, the news before the game, between game one between the Brewers and Tampa Bay was, and nothing's officially official yet from the Brewers, but Cooper Pratt reportedly signing an 8-year deal around $50 million. That's being reported out there. Looking at a little bit more, it says multiple sources told MLB.com that he is closing in on an 8-year contract worth just north of $50 million, with 2 club options for at least an additional $15 million per season. John Heyman reported that the guarantee will be $50.75 million. So I'll admit, and I texted, it's like, hey, our good friend, Mr. Berg, who is my go-to Brewers guy with this whole thing. And I'm like, dude, what's your thoughts on this one? Explain, what's there. He's like, not really sure I can. He said, I'm sure they're thinking they're confident in his ability to lock down shortstop for the next many years, but really surprised about it as well with the other guys they have. Honestly thought he might be trade bait at some point. And honestly, I feel like that was probably what a lot of people thought. They acquired Jet Williams, who could play all across the infield, can play a little bit in the outfield too. You got Jesus, kind of going on that same path, that same trajectory of one Jackson Cheerio, and he plays shortstop too. So it kind of felt like that. All right, is Cooper Pratt maybe a guy that is going to be a little bit of potential trade bait? Not the case, though, it feels like, with this contract. So Cooper Pratt is right now mostly known for his defense. Very instinctive, very solid defensive player. And many believe it's major league ready when you talk about his defense. The one concern, or maybe not concern, but maybe the one area that he needs improvement on is his offense. Before, and this is his first year of playing in AAA, so he's only got a couple of games AAA. But last year in the Southern League, he slashed, this was his slash line, 238, 343, 348. And according to Adam McCulvey, who covers the Brewers for Brewers.com, One source told him, quote, "What we saw with Jackson when he signed, it gave him the freedom to just go play. With Cooper, knowing he doesn't have to worry about anything, he has the freedom to go work in the cage, work with the hitting coaches, and adjust. We know the defense is there. He can play defense in the big leagues right now. That's not in doubt for anybody. We're not talking about a project." So if that is the case where they're locking him up for an 8-year deal and $50-some million and hoping that maybe that relaxes him a little bit, maybe helps improve his offensive production, is that a little bit of a risk? 100%. This is Brewers have done these deals with the likes of Freddie Peralta, Aaron Ashby, obviously Jackson Chourio, where they lock them up for a little bit of a long-term deal, but banking on that the deal is going to look like a bargain. And if Cooper Pratt performs at a high level, maybe improves his offense and already has a major league defense, the deal will look like a bargain. It'll fit that. The Freddie Peralta deal was a bargain. Maybe the Jackson Chourio one right now is already looking like a bargain. And they're banking on that this will look like a bargain as well. But it is a little bit of a surprise because of the depth that they have at that position with the guys that we already talked about. And Pat Murphy couldn't really talk about it yesterday, but talking about Cooper Pratt himself, he said, what's not to like? He has aptitude. He's a baseball player, a good baseball player. He's got a ways to go. He's got to develop, but he's a great human and a great worker. I hope I'm around when he gets to the big leagues. You hear Murphy say that, and it almost feels like Cooper Pratt isn't coming up anytime soon. And I think, and I kind of thought this too, but I think a lot of fans are assuming that, okay, now with this deal, is he going to be called up at any point? Like anytime soon right now. And you listen to Murphy right there, when he says, I hope I'm around when he gets to the big leagues. He's got to develop. He's got a ways to go. It doesn't really paint the picture that he's going to be around or called up, I should say, anytime soon here. That's kind of what it feels like. So I don't know if confusing is the right word to describe it. It's a little surprising and such. But yeah, I'm curious to see how this plays out. How does this affect, position-wise? Because I don't think they're going to move on from Jet Williams. In fact, I think Jet Williams is going to be called up before Cooper Pratt at some point. But maybe they view Jet Williams better as the third baseman, or the fact that he could play outfield. Is he an option over there? Yeah, possibly, maybe he's the left fielder, and maybe Chourio moves full time to center field if they want to ever move on from Garrett Mitchell, and you got Salvatore Frelick, manning right field and such. But yeah, because Jesus, yes, he could play second base too, but he's a shortstop, second base. You got Pena, who's just in a high A right now, but he's an option. You look at the top 4 prospects within the Brewers system. The top 4 prospects, they're all infielders. They're all shortstop experienced players. With Jesus, with Luis, with Jet, and with Cooper. Cooper being the 4th. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how it all plays out. And all jokes aside, Cooper doesn't really fit the size narrative when it comes to the Brewers. He's 6'4". He's not 5'8", 5'7", or whatever. All jokes aside there. But yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how this all plays out. Because Cooper, too, when you look at he's played a couple games at second, but he has primarily just played shortstop. So if anybody's thinking, could he be third? But that's the other thing, too. Okay, all right, third base. There's a kid who just dominated in the World Baseball Classic who played third base. A guy by the name of Andrew Fisher, who's playing in high A this year, but he's their 6th ranked prospect. So, yeah, there's that down the pipeline. This is going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out in the next couple of years. I think the Brewers are well positioned depth-wise for the next couple of years. But to think about, let's say, 3 years from now, is it possible that the infield could be Fisher, Cooper, Jesus? Maybe Jet Williams is an outfielder. Maybe Jet Williams is traded. Somewhere around there. They're in position to do that sort of stuff. At least right now it looks like. Then you got Brock Wilken. He's at third base at the AAA level right now. He's a bigger dude too. Could he potentially move over to first base? Maybe. Possibly. But they've got options. They've got depth. Talk about it with the Packers all the time. I don't mind depth. Depth is a good thing. When you have options and when you have flexibility, it's a good thing. Make some tough decisions on who to move on from or who to trade or who to call up in that. But I'd rather have those decisions than like, oh, crap, we're stuck with this because we don't have any other better options. But I think now with this deal, what it does is, okay, maybe it relaxes him in the cage and such. Maybe it relaxes him so he has better offensive, output and such. I just wonder if, okay, we get a few months down the road, and he's still not at the major league level. Does he start to press himself like, man, I got this contract now. I got to go out there and I got to play better so I get called up so I show that I'm worthy of this contract. Because, fans are going to start to have that internal clock and countdown saying, hey, when are we going to see this guy? Especially, let's say, if Ortiz struggles offensively. And it's clearly evident they need another option at short. There's going to be a little bit of that kind of outside pressure. All right, we got to take a quick break as we wrap up this final hour. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes. Looking for the perfect place to kick back this spring and summer? Well, then you need to head on over to the VFW Post 305, Eau Claire's go-to spot to relax, grab a beverage, and enjoy the moment. Inside, it's great. It's a great place to meet up with friends, but when the weather warms up, it's all about that patio. With one of the best river views in town, there's no better place to soak up the sunshine, unwind after work, or spend a weekend afternoon. Cold drinks, great people, and a view that you can't beat. VFW Post 305 in Eau Claire, your spot to hang out this season. And if you're wondering where to maybe grab some breakfast this morning, doesn't that sound good? I could really go for a ham and cheese omelet right now. But breakfast, VFW Post 305, Star Avenue in Eau Claire, the place to be. I thought this was, first of all, Carl says to do basically the same thing they did with Cheerio. They must love Cooper's potential. I thought this was an interesting nugget when I was looking up some stuff about Cooper Pratt last night. This was from Adam McCulvey a while ago, but Cooper Pratt spent the spring trying to learn Spanish to better communicate with his Latin American teammates. That's the type of person and personality the Brewers are drawn to and really appreciate in their clubhouse. I thought that was a really cool note and a really cool nugget that Cooper Pratt took it upon himself to try to learn another language, to try to learn Spanish, to better communicate with some of his teammates. Not many players do that. Not many other people do that. So when you talk about it from a leadership standpoint, that's pretty impressive. So, yeah, we'll talk more about that. We've got Morgan to finish up the hour. Good morning, Morgan.
Hola, mi amigo. ¿Cómo está?
Yeah, I don't know who messes with my stuff over the weekend, but I got cameras that are all over the place, like knocked over and stuff.
Well, if you have cameras all over the place, you should know who messes with your stuff. Surveillance video, man. Find out who's doing this.
All webcam stuff.
I'm telling you, I like the Pratt approach. If more people did things like that, we'd live in a better world.
Oh, the
taking it on and learning it, and because ultimately, aren't you just augmenting your own skill set too? It makes you a better person. You're able to communicate better with other people. And it's completely incongruent to this tendency to be entitled to everything. Mm-hmm. I like that different approach. That is exactly the track to be running on, I think.
Yeah.
And everybody wins. Mm-hmm. You're communicating better. The team wins, most importantly. And you have that synergy with the rest of the teammate with communication. I like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's talk about things you don't like. Is it a Grind My Gears Tuesday?
It is a Grind My Gears Tuesday.
Should we make the driving age 18?
Ooh.
And not 16? Now, don't speak as 16-year-old Casper, who was probably like, your tail was wagging to drive when you were 16.
Well, so it's interesting because I was talking with one of my neighbors a couple weeks ago, and he's got a son approaching driving age, and he said it's different than when we were younger because they're not all geeked up.
Ding, ding, ding. They're pretty ambivalent about it.
Yeah.
Like right now, Siggy's putting in hours, and I'm taking her driving and stuff. But yesterday, I picked her and a friend up from ball practice, and I said, "Do you want to drive home?" And after the friend was out of the car, nobody get on me. This was not, I'm following the rules, but we dropped the friend off and I said, "You want to drive home?" And she said, I'm just going to ride. Okay. 15, 16-year-old me, never was that an option. Yeah. We wanted to drive, but now, do you think it's because one of the main motivations when we were that age was to get out, meet your friends, do stuff? Because of social media, and everybody feels like they're already in touch with everything, so they don't actually have to go to the meeting place. They don't have to show up at the park to throw a ball. They don't have to go to the mall.
Even like, we had cell phones when we were younger, but the draw was the snake game on that, for crying out loud.
Right.
So before the texting rage and that. So
then is there a gap in maturity that we should also attend to by raising that driving age to 18? Because I would also argue that back at 16, you're coming from a cultural tendency to already be driving farm equipment or things like that. So you were younger, naturally, you were in these positions to drive things. Now, because of the way that society has moved, that's not necessarily the